Ever feel like digging into a real-life mystery?
Well, buckle up, because today we're time traveling.
Back 5,000 years to the Indus civilization.
Think bustling cities, crazy advanced plumbing. Seriously.
These guys were ahead of the game.
It's incredible this wasn't some tiny civilization either.
And trade networks that would put Amazon to shame.
Imagine 1,000,000 square kilometers spanning
Modern-day Pakistan and parts of India.
Exactly.
All throbbing with this unique culture.
And here's the real head-scratcher.
They had their own writing system.
Etched on seals, pottery, you name it.
But it's like they hit the self-destruct button on their language.
Gone, vanished, leaving archaeologists stumped for over a century. It's like finding a treasure chest, but losing the key.
And like any good puzzle.
But there are always those who claim it can't be solved.
Some scholars thought the Indus Script wasn't even a language.
I get that.
Just random symbols, pretty to look at but meaningless.
If they were so smart, why not leave a handy translation guideline around, right?
But I have a feeling you're about to throw a plot twist at me.
Here's the thing.
Dismissing an ancient script as mere symbols was a common mistake.
Remember Egyptian hieroglyphs?
They were once considered indecipherable too.
But the Rosetta Stone proved everyone wrong, just like hieroglyphs told stories.
The Indus Script's consistent patterns and standardized signs across such a massive civilization, that's a language shouting to be understood, not just pretty pictures.
Okay, so we've got this cryptic language. Where do we even begin to decipher it without that translation guide?
Think of it like being a linguistic detective.
If 1,000,000 people use this language, traces.
Must exist in the languages spoken in that same region today, right?
That's our starting point.
Yeah.
A whisper from the past.
So, like a process of elimination. I've heard theories about Sanskrit or other Indo-Aryan languages being the key. What makes them less likely candidates in this linguistic lineup?
It all boils down to timing.
Both linguistics and archaeology point to Indo-Aryan languages, including Sanskrit, appearing in the Indus Valley around the 2nd millennium BCE.
Think horse-drawn chariots, a real game changer for that era, coinciding with the decline of the Indus cities.
So, the Indo-Aryan languages and the chariot arrived after the Indus folks were already well established.
Exactly.
There was definitely interaction, which explains why we see loan words borrowed by Sanskrit. But the Indus language itself predates that cultural shift. Other languages, like Burushaski or Sino-Tibetan languages, are geographically further away from the Indus region, making them less likely suspects as well.
So we've ruled out a few suspects.
But that just deepens the mystery, doesn't it?
If it's not these languages, what could it be?
Give me the good stuff.
This is where it gets really interesting.
The linguistic family that checks all our boxes is none other than Dravidian.
The ancestor of languages spoken in South India today.
Now, wait a minute.
Are you saying that the language on these 5,000-year-old artifacts?
Could be a relative of languages spoken today? That's incredible.
If this linguistic detective work pans out, we're talking about a connection.
Over millennia.
Mind-blowing, right? But when you look at the evidence,
It becomes a compelling case.
take Brahui, for example. It's a Dravidian language.
Spoken in Baluchistan, which is in northwest Pakistan.
The fact that it's spoken there
So far from South India hints at a much larger historical presence.
of Dravidian languages,
Like a linguistic breadcrumb trail.
leading us back to the Indus.
Precisely.
Then we have those borrowed words in Sanskrit, the ones that snuck in from the Indus region languages.
Many of those words have a distinctly Dravidian ring to them.
It's like the languages bumped into each other at a party and swapped a few phrases.
Fascinating.
But if we're saying it's Proto-Dravidian, how do we actually decipher it? It's not like we can fire up Google Translate.
To ancient Indus, right?
Not quite.
It's a much trickier puzzle, unfortunately. Unlike alphabets, the Indus script is likely what we call logosyllabic.
A single sign can represent a whole word or just a syllable.
Hold on, so it's like one symbol could mean tree.
Or just TR, depending on what's around it.
That sounds ridiculously difficult.
It's exactly.
Add to that the rebus principle, where a symbol might be used for its sound instead of its meaning.
Imagine using the symbol for sun to also represent the word sun. It's those extra layers of complexity.
That make the Indus script such a challenge, but also incredibly rewarding to try and unravel.
I can only imagine. So, how do experts even begin to make sense of it all?
They must need to be master code breakers.
That's where the work of scholars like Asko Parpola comes in.
He spent years studying the Indus Script, meticulously analyzing each symbol and applying his deep knowledge.
Of Dravidian languages to piece together their possible meanings.
So he's like our linguistic Sherlock Holmes, looking for clues in these ancient symbols.
Absolutely.
One of his key strategies is to focus on symbols that pop up more often than you'd expect.
If they just represented their literal meaning, it's a bit like when you hear the same word.
Used over and over again, you start to think there must be something more to it.
Okay, I need an example.
Give me one of those frequently used symbols and how Parpola uses it to unlock the secrets of this ancient writing.
He's done some fascinating work with the fish symbols.
These symbols are everywhere on Indus seals.
Way more than you'd expect if they were just talking about catching dinner.
So more than just a tasty meal then. How does a simple fish become a clue to an entire language?
Well, remember that Dravidian connection we talked about?
The word for fish in Dravidian languages, mean, is the same as the word for star.
Now, that is interesting.
Suddenly, those frequently used fish symbols take on a whole new meaning. Are we talking about constellations instead of catches?
You got it.
And it makes a lot of sense when you consider how other ancient cultures, like the Egyptians, use stars to represent their gods.
We know that the Indus people were also skilled astronomers.
Their cities were planned with astronomical alignments.
It stands to reason that stars held a significant place in their belief system, too.
That makes sense.
So we've got fish, possibly meaning star, which could then represent a god. It's like a chain reaction of meaning.
But how do we go from there to actually deciphering the rest of the script?
Parpola's method is all about meticulous cross-checking.
He takes these potential meanings and compares them to everything we know about Dravidian languages.
Especially Old Tamil, which is like the grandparent of many Dravidian languages today, preserving those older forms and meanings.
So it's not about random guesses. It's about carefully matching sounds, meanings, and fitting those pieces into the bigger puzzle of Indus civilization.
Exactly.
Every potential translation needs to pass a rigorous test.
Does it line up with known Dravidian vocabulary?
Does it make sense when we consider what we know about the Indus civilization, their rituals, beliefs, and so on?
It's a slow and meticulous process, but it's already revealing some amazing insights.
This is fascinating. It's like we're slowly piecing together a complex jigsaw puzzle of language and culture. Are there any other intriguing symbols and potential translations that Parpola has uncovered?
One that stands out is the crab sign.
Parpola suggests that it could represent the concept of grasping or seizing.
Okay, I can see that crabs are famous for their pincers. But how does grasping fit into the larger picture of the Indus script? We're talking about abstract ideas here, not just literal crabs on the beach.
Right. Well, Parpola observed that this crab sign frequently appears near those fish signs that we believe represent stars and planets.
Interesting. So we have a grasping crab hanging around symbols that might represent celestial bodies, like it's trying to grab the stars. What could that mean?
This is where it gets really thought-provoking. Remember how ancient cultures often believed that the movements of planets could influence people's lives?
Even cause illness.
That idea shows up in both Mesopotamian and ancient Indian traditions.
Ah, so this grasping crab could represent that powerful cosmic influence, like the planets seizing or affecting our destiny. Maybe even a kind of astrological omen.
Exactly. And it gets even more intriguing when you see how the crab sign is used with other symbols.
One combination shows the crab nestled inside the fig tree sign.
Wait, the crab is actually inside the fig tree. Now that's a vivid image.
It really is. And if we recall our earlier discussion, fig trees seem to be linked to fertility in the Indus script.
Parpola suggests that this crab, nestled inside the fig, could symbolize an embryo, the potential for new life, being grasped or nurtured within the tree.
Now that gives me goosebumps. It's such a powerful visual metaphor for the miracle of creation. And it connects to those very human desires for children, for family, for the continuation of life.
And it ties in beautifully with those symbols that seem to relate to the god Murukin, often depicted as a child, a symbol of new beginnings. It's almost as if this entire system of symbols revolves around the concepts of fertility, renewal, and the enduring cycle of life.
This has been an amazing journey. We've gone from what seemed like random squiggles on ancient artifacts to uncovering a complex and poetic language, potentially connecting astronomy, religion, and those deeply human hopes and fears. But let's be real, are we saying Parpola has definitively cracked the code of the Indus script?
It's crucial to remember that we're dealing with a partial decipherment.
We don't have that clear-cut Rosetta Stone to give us a word-for-word translation.
But what Parpola has achieved is groundbreaking. He's given us a new framework for understanding this ancient script, one grounded in both rigorous linguistic analysis and a deep understanding of the cultural context.
So he's provided us with a map, but there are still plenty of uncharted territories when it comes to the Indus script.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so exciting. The Indus script remains a captivating mystery, an open invitation for future scholars to explore and unravel. But thanks to the meticulous work of researchers like Parpola, we're finally beginning to appreciate the richness and complexity of this ancient civilization and glimpse the echoes of their beliefs and ideas whispered across millennia in the cultures of South Asia today.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've journeyed back 5,000 years, attempted to decode ancient symbols, and gotten a glimpse into the soul of a lost civilization. And as we resurface from this journey, here's a question to ponder. If these connections are even partially true, what does it tell us about the enduring legacy of the Indus people? Could their language and beliefs have shaped the Indian subcontinent more profoundly than we ever realized? Keep those questions in mind, and until next time, happy exploring.